very exciting. Aisha energetic. I love it. Good morning. Good morning, Tosin excited. I love it. Good morning, everybody. Please, oh, please, guys, no, ma, I'm super young. You'd be surprised at how old I am. It's shown. I just had breakfast. Okay, I mean, for those that have had breakfast, that's great. Somebody says the person is hungry. I mean, try to nibble on something while you're here. Alrighty. Good morning. I can see that we're super pumped. I love that. Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for joining early. I appreciate people that are very big or when respecting other people's time is concerned. So thank you so much. You should celebrate yourself. That's a win for all of us today. And thank you for the dedication as well. Today's Saturday, you could have been doing every other thing, but you're here willing to learn and expand your knowledge. And I just really hope it's worth it. Good morning, presenter. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy on your behalf. So I'm happy that we're all alive. We thank God for that. Alrighty. We're moving quickly. Please, can you confirm that I can see my screen? I'm just going to check that. Please confirm that you can see my screen. Yes, anybody? Okay, fine. Perfect. So we're talking about the power of integrated marketing communications today and creating a seamless brand experience. And so we're going to ensure that the class is as engaging as possible. While I will be communicating or engaging via my slides. We'll have a section for videos. At the end of the conversation, we're going to see a sample of an integrated marketing communications plan too as well. We'll have assignments. If we still have enough time, we'll also do a classwork here. But for the classwork, of course, I'm not going to be able to get everybody to participate. I'm just going to call a couple of people if we still have time to just make it happen. So very first introductions, just because I saw somebody call me presenter. My name is Shion Koshwedo. I'm the co-founder of the Marketing Girls Corner, one of the organizers of this initiative and bootcamp. I'm also the founder, or I like to call myself the Chief Vision Officer of Eccentric Media. I've dedicated so far 9 years to marketing and communications. And first, I'm very big on supporting aspiring giants to move from point A to Z using integrated marketing communications. And over the years, I have been able to master how in marketing communications contributes just not only to marketing objectives, but also contributes to business growth and business objectives. And I'm a big advocate of helping founders understand the importance of driving business growth, of driving revenue, of driving customer acquisition, and so much more, moving from focusing on vanity metrics to actual metrics. And as we move forward, these are some of the things that we will discuss based on learnings, experience, and things that I have learned over time, and how we can apply it into whatever we do. So the best way to predict the future is to create it. And how is that happening in the world around us? AI did not just evolve from somewhere, evolve from space. It was human beings that created it. It was human beings that studied it enough and came together to create something. So if you want to be part of the innovators or the shapers of the future, you have to be creating things. You have to be a creator. You have to be an innovator. So food for thoughts, right? Have you ever thought to yourself, we see so many brand adverts. We see so many adverts, and adverts, I'm talking about TV ads, radio ads, billboards, social media ads. Have you ever thought, and there's some that just really stick, in our heads. There's some that are just very unforgettable. Have you ever thought about what makes it unforgettable? Why is it that in comparison to some marketing campaigns go viral while others just fade into obscurity? And for those of us that are business owners on this call, right? If you had your brand today and it disappeared, would your audience notice? And in our journey to uncovering and understanding the power of integrated marketing communications, we're going to be specifically taking one of or studying using a case study of one of the biggest integrated marketing communications so far campaign in the world, is the Share a Coke campaign, right? If Coke disappeared today, guys, and we can drop it in the chat box, do we think that people will notice? What is your answer? If Coca-Cola disappeared today, will people notice? What do you guys think? In the chat box, I'd like to see your response. Let's say you go to the market and there's no bottle of Coca-Cola. Okay, yes. Why do we think so? Why do we think so? Is anybody able to quickly write? Yeah, people will notice. Okay, so we all agree that people will notice. So why do we think that people will notice if Coca-Cola disappears? And Coke lovers will. Even their competitors will notice. Yes, some Pepsi, for example, will notice. People will build a good brand image that everyone can see at least twice in a week. They're all in our faces. And you would think that because of how popular Coca-Cola is, they don't need any form of adverts. I mean, you hear a lot of brands say that we're popular enough and we don't need any form of adverts, but consistently and creatively so, they keep coming up with interesting marketing campaigns and so much more. Yeah, so I guess we're all in line. So what we want to learn today is the power of integrated communications, mastering key components and winning channels, decoding your audience, the secret to powerful messaging, brand storytelling, the digital edge, talk beyond digital, creating an omnichannel campaign, metrics that matter, crisis management, and the $1 million marketing playgroup, how you optimize for growth. Before I talk about definitions, right? I'm going to play a video now that I want us to watch. And we're going to talk about the video for a bit. So I'm going to play two videos. I'm trying to share my screen. I'm going to play two videos.
BootCamp in Designer, and the first thing you'll notice is this clean, user-friendly interface. Now watch closely. I'm clicking Create New Project and selecting.
Okay. Right. Can we see my screen? Yeah? Can we see my screen? Yes, perfect.
They call me Help. They call me Six. They call me Bella. They call me Jane. That's not my name. That's not my name. That's not my name. They call me.
Okay, that was just to whet our appetite. I'm playing the next video now.
The Share a Coke campaign is by far their most successful marketing stunt ever. By simply printing names on their products, Coke managed to end a decade-long sales decline and increase their revenue by $12.9 billion in just 2 years. So, how did this effortless tactic completely change the trajectory of Coca-Cola's company? To answer that, we need to travel back to 2011. A time when Coke was facing a massive problem. At the time, teens and young adults alike weren't drinking Coca-Cola. More specifically, they weren't drinking it because they thought the brand was outdated and didn't resonate with it as much as older people. This was most apparent in Australia, where in August of 2010, half of their young adult population had never tasted a Coke. With that shocking statistic in mind, the Australian Coca-Cola team started brainstorming ideas to get teens back on Coke. They wanted to accomplish two things with their idea. First, increase sales of Coca-Cola among young consumers, and second, bring the brand closer to Australia's young adults. After doing extensive research, they realized there was a massive opportunity for growth among millennials through their branding and digital presence. These young adults were now living in a digital world, and if these types of consumers perceive Coca-Cola as outdated, then refreshing their brand image and adapting to the digital world these kids were living in was vital to success. And so, Coca-Cola mapped out a strategic plan to reconnect with young Australians Australians. And that plan was for them to share a Coke. The backbone of their plan involved changing the labels on every single product they sold. Every can and bottle of Coca-Cola would have their traditional logo replaced with "Share a Coke with," followed by one of the 150 most popular names in Australia, which accounted for about 42% of their entire population. This small tweak, in theory, would encourage millennials to not only be excited about finding their name on a Coke product, but also share that product on social media to their friends. On top of that, Coca-Cola planned an extensive effort to set up 18 kiosks across malls in Australia, where young adults could print custom cans of Coke with their names on them, further promoting the idea to share their personalized products with friends online. Furthermore, their efforts to reach millennials extended beyond their physical products, including ads in newspapers, on TV, on buses, with influencers, and most notably billboards. These digital billboards allowed viewers to text the name of themselves or their friends to Coca-Cola, and Coke would take that name and update their billboards in real time to show the name on a virtual Coke can. And this idea, once again, promoted viewers to share their customized billboards online to their friends. And so, with their genius plan mapped out, Coca-Cola was more eager than ever to reconnect with Australia's young adults. But it turned out their elaborate plan came with many roadblocks. In order to execute a plan of this magnitude, Coca-Cola had to redesign their entire company workflow. From the marketing team to the legal team, design team, product team, and more, every department of Coke needed to communicate effectively and be on their A game. And if that didn't happen, the whole plan would crumble. But Coke had to go out of fight. Thousands of employees were assigned to the can that were clear and concise. Rules. They had to fix millions of unique rules on bottles, all while the marketing, all of them, a new plan. This entire process was daunting to them. Every employee put an event was ready for launch. 4,000 hours of talking to stakeholders, 225 trademark searches, 2,300 original artwork designs, and so much more. Coca-Cola launched their campaign in the summer of 2011, summer being a special time for Australians. In a lot of plan, millennials fell in love with the idea to share Coke. The excitement of finding their names on Coke products and sharing them with friends ignited a multi-million person movement that eventually made headlines on night shows, news outlets, and more. But every aspect of Coke was perfectly executed. Their kiosks had our lines. Thousands of people were taking pictures of billboards, millions of personalized Coke bottles off shelves. And to the campaign, Coca-Cola 10% in consumption, more than 200 million customized Coke over increasing Coca-Cola had in mind. They bring brand to the adult. Taking a cool line performance says it all. In less than a year, 500,000 photos were shared in media with hashtag share Coke, 70,000 of which were Coca-Cola's own boards. Page 25 million people follow them, increased by 800. It goes without saying that the magic that the share.
Oh, I see a comment. Is it up? Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Is it better or it's still lagging? Let me try playing again.
A quick look at their online performance says it all. In less than a year, over 500,000 photos were shared on social media with hashtag share Coke, 76,000 of which were Coca-Cola's own billboards. Their Facebook page saw a fresh 25 million people follow them, and Coke's website traffic increased by 870%. It goes without saying that the magic that the Share Coke campaign created in Australia was unstoppable. So much so that it expanded beyond the entire country. Over 70 other countries were quick to embrace the love for sharing a Coke, each of which had their 250 most popular names printed on Coke's products. And unsurprisingly, the campaign worked flawlessly in every single country. Over the years after it originally launched, the Share Coke campaign generated over 1 billion impressions online and became the #1 global trending topic on social media. And of course, Coca-Cola sold a lot of Coke. From before the campaign started in 2010 to the peak of it in 2012, Coca-Cola saw a $12.9 billion increase in revenue, completely wiping out the 10-year-long sales slump they endured before. It's impressive how fast Share a Coke became a cultural phenomenon, but it's arguably more impressive how Coke revolutionized their ads during Christmas time. To see how they did that, check out this video on how Coke used Santa Claus to make themselves an icon during the holidays.
Okay.
Teenagers are building
Um,
businesses with
let me
AI,
just-
well, the only AI you know.
Okay, let me pause that. Let me share my screen again. So what did we learn, or what did we observe from the video? And as marketing communications experts, we have to be very observant. But let me guide you, right? First, before you create any form of marketing campaign, there must be something that you must be willing to solve. We will call it an objective or a problem that you have identified. And in marketing, the problem that you're trying to solve can be in 4 phases, right? We call it the IDA model. So A is for awareness. Are you trying to create awareness? And this is usually for sometimes a large percentage for new products, right? You're a new product that is launching into the market. You're trying to make people aware of your product, or you're an existing product and you're trying to target a new market. You're trying to make people aware of your product. Or is it interest too as well? The second, that's I in the IDA model. Are you trying to get people to be interested in your product? So that just means that they are aware, so in awareness, the strategy that you create, what you measure is different from what you measure at the interest phase. So people might be aware of your product. For example, when we're talking about Coca-Cola, somebody mentioned that Coca-Cola lovers will be interested. So it's obvious that that person is not necessarily a Coca-Cola fan, right? But the person is aware of Coca-Cola, right? So it's like a lot of people might be aware of your product. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're interested in your product. So at the interest phase is the question, the big question is, how do you get people to be interested in your product or the service that you create? And the marketing strategy that you would implement at that stage is just very different. There's now the desire phase. Now they're interested, right? You now want them to be desirous of your product in a way that everything that you're doing, they're sleeping, eating, and drinking your product. Then the final phase is the action phase, the conversion phase, where value is actually made, where they're either willing to pay for your product or whatever call to action is included in your marketing strategy. For the Share a Coke campaign, for an example, yeah, that's right. Thank you, Oreolua. For the Share a Coke campaign, for an example, I've dropped the video link in the chat box. The major problem was the fact that first, they were experiencing a sales decline if you looked at it. And secondly, they were trying to target, please excuse me for one. Okay, sorry guys. For the Share a Coke campaign, for an example, the major issue, the first issue that they were facing. So for the Share a Coke campaign, for an example, the first issue that they were experiencing was a sales decline. The second issue that they experienced was the fact that in the Australian market, a large percentage of the young audience, millennials, were not interested in the Coca-Cola product. And this was a challenge for them. Right. So the objective of the marketing campaign was already established. Increase sales by a certain percentage within the Australian market. Retarget the Coca-Cola brand to target the younger community within the Australian market. That's one observation. Second observation is the importance of research. They did so much research in a way that they understood what young millennials needed, or millennials needed at that point, or the young audiences needed at that point. It was exciting to see your name on a bottle. That's the second observation. The third observation is that they came up with a tagline, which was called Share a Coke campaign. Share a Coke. As we move forward, I would understand what messaging and all of that is, what messaging for your marketing campaigns can do in terms of driving conversion or driving some sort of action. Another observation is understanding, like I mentioned yesterday, the importance of marketing across all the different departments. Remember that they did not say that the marketing department worked in isolation. They had to work with other departments. They mentioned legal. They mentioned finance. I mean, who would think that the marketing department will have to work with legal? They mentioned the fact that because of a marketing campaign that they wanted to implement, they had to change the entire operations and the structure of their business, right? So that's another observation. Another observation is how they use one message, which is the point of integrated marketing communications, right? Share a code campaign across different customer touch points. And we're going to physical stores, we're seeing share a cook with. You're seeing it on the billboards, you're seeing it on TV, you're seeing it in the first ad that we watch, you're seeing it across board, right? You're not seeing share a coke somewhere and share the coke in another place or drink Coca-Cola in another place. There was one message communicated in a unified manner across different touch points. Hi, everybody. That is what integrated marketing communications literally is. You have one unified message, but before you have done that, you have gone through building the foundation. You have one unified message and you communicate it across different touch points. And if you review or if you see in the communication of the results that were made, one thing that I see that a lot of marketing communications people do or professionals do is that we're so focused on what we now call vanity metrics, impressions, likes, comments, which are okay, especially at the awareness phase. But for you to fully establish yourself as a marketing professional, you now have to be concerned about revenue. Marketing has evolved from just being a cost center to being more of an investment center. We're investing $1 million into this campaign. The result means that the $1 million has to give us 100% back. It has to give us $12 million. So if you look at the Share a Cook campaign during your spare time, you see that they were focused on the results in terms of revenue, that it took Coca-Cola's revenue from $1 billion to about $12 billion. Another observation, which is very relevant in your marketing strategy, is that they did not just start, they didn't say, okay, we have a campaign, we've gotten it right, let's go around the world and take over. They started from a fraction of the Australian market, if you observed, before they took it to the world. So in marketing, there's something called scaling. You have to break your marketing strategy down in phases before you scale. Because if you take it to the market without testing in phase one, getting the results back, reworking your strategy for phase two, getting the result back, doing another phase three, getting the result back before you now scale, it's going to be a big mess. So before you go global, go local. For example, in Nigeria, you say that you're even testing from Lagos, because Lagos has the highest population. Before you say you're taking it to Southwest, before you say you're taking it to the Southeast, before you say you're taking it to the North Central, before you now launch through the whole of Nigeria and Africa. Now, as we move further, I'll tell you why. So those are observations from the Share a Cook campaign. Feel free to outline other observations that I might not have listed in the journey that I've just taken you on. So let's go to definition, right? Marketing is the management process responsible for identifying, anticipating, satisfying customer requirements profitably. The key word that I need us to focus here on is profitably, right? It has come to a point, or at some points in time, marketers are usually saying that sales is not my business. I'm just here to generate leads. But understand that marketing has evolved from that. There's some sort of synergy now between marketing, sales, the business team, to see how whatever marketing strategy you're implementing per time can be profitable for your business. You see some brands saying that marketing, or you see some definitions saying that marketing is the exchange of value. Value is only realized when the customer is able to pay for it. But for them to pay for it, it means that you have been able to deliver value to them. So in developing your marketing strategies or your marketing campaigns, these are some things that you have to factor in mind. So modern marketing is not just about pushing products. It's about building relationships. It's about understanding needs. And in building relationships during the branding class, you'll be able to understand and learn more about how branding can help you to build relationships. So branding is an aspect of marketing. You have to understand needs, you have to understand your customers, you have to create value and deliver it consistently across all the relevant touch points. Moving on. Now, there's so many terms being thrown around where marketing is concerned. The major terms are marketing, branding, and communications, and there's the need to distinctly clarify all these different terms. Marketing is strategy plus very much customer focus. It's everything that you do to drive demand and ensure that value is effectively created. Branding, on the other hand, is an experience. It's everything that you do to package your product to ensure that your product is different from every other brand. If you remove the packaging, you know, that red nylon piece from Coca-Cola, if you remove that, it's just another bottle. But when you put that, it's now Coca-Cola. That's why you're able to differentiate Coca-Cola from a Pepsi. That's why you're able to differentiate a Pepsi from a Biggie because of the intentionality in term and branding that they have put into it. And if you look at all the campaign ads by Pepsi and Coca-Cola, you're easily able to spot it. You know when it's a Pepsi ad. Maybe because of the colors, maybe because of the language, maybe because of the kind of ads that they use. For example, you see that Coca-Cola uses everyday people to launch their ads, while Pepsi uses more of influencers. That's because of the kind of brand that they have created. And in your brand thinking session, I'm sure that you will learn more than that. But learn more about it. But what branding does is to help you build trust and preference. And there's the communication side of it, right? You're not able to build trust. You're not able to deliver value to your customers if you're not able to communicate in a way and a language that they actually understand. So communications is in terms of you have a message. How do you deliver it to your customers in a way that they are persuaded, they're engaged, and they're converted? Marketing, branding, communications put together in a way that is effective helps you to deliver effectively on your marketing campaign. So I've been talking a lot, right, about integrated marketing, communications, and so much more. I hope you understand definitions and I hope you understand the background that we're coming from. Now, the question in everybody's minds will be, how do you develop a marketing communications campaign? This model by PR Smith has just made it super easy. There's something that we call the SOSTAC model, which is what every marketing communications strategy, all the marketing communications. Oh, okay. I'll do that. I'll try my best. My slide is still on 6. I've moved it. Is that relevant with everybody? I'm not saying the chat box, but just feel free to stop me or raise your hand, just in case. Am I still on slide 6? I'm on slide 8, if everybody is with me. Can we see slide 8? Can somebody confirm? We are with you. Great. So I'm on slide 8. So I was talking about the SOSTAC model, right? Okay, I will slow down for you. Yes, you will get slides and recording after the class. I'll slow down for you. I'll just in the background, but here I need you to understand this part. So I'm just going to be a lot slower. So we have the SOSTAC model, right? And this is what you need to use in creating your integrated marketing communications campaign. Now, S under SOSTAC is called the situation. You need to understand your environment. And this is where a large percentage of brands put their efforts in. This is the research side of things, where you're understanding where we are right now. And under situation analysis, we have to identify, understand the external environment. So these are understanding different forces, external forces that contribute to the success and failure of your brand. Under situation analysis, for example, we have something called PESTEL to understand the external environment. And remember, I said that they're external factors that might not necessarily a large percentage of times be within your control, but can affect how your brand progresses or succeeds in the market. So under PESTEL, we have P for the political environment. For example, in Nigeria, we've just newly introduced something called tax laws and all of that. If you're launching a brand in the United States, or if you're a Nigerian and you're trying to take your brand to the United States, you know about how when Donald Trump entered into power, and there were a lot of news about tariffs and all of that, even that has reduced a bit and other things have overshadowed it. But these are things that you need to understand within the political environment and how it affects your brand, right? For the new tax laws, how that going to affect your marketing campaign? 2027, if you're launching, then there's going to be an election that will be taking place. How does that affect your campaign? So you have to do a personal analysis. You have to do a political analysis and understand how the political scene affects whatever you do. Then under pestle again, which is also under the external environment of the situation analysis, there's something that you call understanding the economical environment. For things like inflation, we know that if there is inflation, it will naturally affect customer buying power. So that will most likely help you with, yeah, Destiny, I can see you writing things like that. Yeah, exactly. You're very much correct. So, under economic environment, we have things like inflation, right? Inflation affects the buying power of consumers, affects the buying power of the publics and all of that. When there's inflation, if it's for the luxury market, yeah, maybe they're able to spend more. But if you're targeting the mass market, and we'll talk about that in customer analysis, you know that you have to be very strategic where your pricing is concerned. If there's inflation, that's when you have to introduce things like discounts and so much more. So you have to understand the economic environment in which you're operating and how that affects your consumer buying power. You have to understand the social environment. What are the behaviors of your target audience? What influences their behavior in terms of subscribing to your products? And so much more. I don't want to talk about target audience now because we'll still talk about that. We have to talk about the technological environment. For an example, if you run a marketing agency like myself, and you're targeting the African market, yes, Africa is slowly adopting things like AI, slowly but surely. So it means that in creating my marketing strategy, for the businesses that we will target, we have to say that, okay, we've introduced AI into our processes and all of that. So look at your different environments, whether it's a product brand or a service brand and you're offering a service. What are the technological improvements that have erupted and how are the customers subscribing to this? For example, before digital, traditional guys would just say it's traditional and they will examine the developments where traditional advertising. So traditional advertising is everything that is out of the online form of advertising or form of marketing. We're talking about TV ads, we're talking about radio ads, we're talking about billboards, we're talking about, anything that's just out of online. So what they would have been doing then was doing an analysis of everything outside online. But as soon as digital was introduced, they started doing an analysis of digital during in their technological analysis. So there's the legal analysis too as well and how it affects your strategy. And there's the ecological analysis. If you're doing a marketing strategy for the global market, you see how they're very big on sustainability, eco-friendliness, and so much more. If you're doing a marketing strategy for the renewable energy sector, fast-moving consumer goods sector, they're very, so ecological markets, understanding the ecological environment would be able to support you in the building and the development of whatever strategy you are creating or trying to build. So that is one way to understand your external environment. We also have the competitor audits, right? What are your competitors doing? So if we're taking a Kuda, for an example, which is a fintech brand, Kuda will come and they will analyze a Fair Money, let's say, they will analyze an OPay, they will analyze a Money Point, they will analyze a Paga, and then do an analysis of what they're doing. And the analysis can be divided into two parts. What are their business strategy and what is their marketing strategy, right? So for somebody like Money Points that started from agency banking, maybe their marketing strategy is direct marketing. What exactly are they doing online and how are they doing it? Are they very big? What kind of content are they releasing there? What kind of influencers are they engaging for their brand? So you do an entire competitor audit as well. So for the external environment, sorry, moving to the internal environment, and there's so much more that you can do in terms of understanding and analyzing your external environment. Understanding the market, understanding, your suppliers, like Destiny put in the chat box too as well. Now, when we talk about the internal environment, sorry, there's also the customer analysis for the external environment, because remember, external environments are factors that you can't necessarily control. And customer analysis is deeper in its own form. So when you're analyzing customer analysis, first you have to understand the different generations, for an example. And trust me, for each of these different factors that you're analyzing for your situation analysis, people create like 30, 50 pages to make it happen. That's to show you how much detail and time that they focus on where understanding your environment is concerned. So for the customer analysis, we're talking about, there's the demography analysis, which has to do with age, which has to do with the income level, which has to do with the religion of the customers that you'll be serving. And when we talk about age, right, we look usually at the different demographics. I mean, we look usually at the different generations. So we have the baby boomers. For example, we have the baby boomers, we have the generation, we have the baby boomers, we have the generation X, we have the millennials, we have Gen Zs, we have generation Alpha. You have to understand the different age brackets and how to communicate with them. For example, baby boomers are very much big on texts. They're very big on physical contact. So let's say you're targeting baby boomers, for an example. Having to do a digital ad is not going to work, right? You have to be ensuring that you have that's where direct marketing, physical marketing, or personal selling will work for you. If you're targeting generation X, generation Y, sorry, for an example, generation X, for an example. Yes, you also, generation X and baby boomers, they sort of have similar traits. Anyway, especially where relationship building is concerned, especially where personal selling is concerned and engagement is concerned. But if you're coming to the millennials, slowly but surely, that's when you now start to focus on digital, and how you communicate via digital matters as well. If you're coming to Generation Z, it's more exciting. You go full, and kind of digital that you use for Generation Z also matters too as well. You know that you're going full out on TikTok. You know that you're going full out with colors. You know that you're going full out with using more of audio visuals. I mean, it was in the Generation Z generation that things like podcasts started to evolve and erupt because of how quick and sharp the attention span is. And if you're looking at the Generation Alpha, who are just coming up too as well, you know that for this generation, you're targeting more of their parents, right? So it is important that you understand the different generations and how to communicate with them, and what channels you use to communicate with them at different points. So that is it under demography. You also have psychographic, right? You have to understand how they think and why they think the way that they think. For example, if you're a luxury brand, so we have brands that are luxurious, and we have brands that are focused on more of the mass market. So when we talk about luxurious brands, for example, your Louis Vuitton is one of those brands, your Gucci is one of those brands. We're talking about brands for the mass market, like in the Nigerian market, we have Biggie, we have Origin and the likes. So how you communicate, you have to understand how these people think, what influences their buying behaviors, and ensure that your marketing strategy is positioned for that. For example, for the luxury market, the higher the price, the more they want to buy it. They're also very big on communities for the luxury market. And it is very specialized communities. For example, signing up for a Lagos Polo Club, kind of thing, this very streamlined, or a Premier Business Network, very, very streamlined communities that are positioned for the luxury market. For the mass market, you know that they're very big on discounts. The cheaper the pricing is, the more that they will want to buy. So you need to understand different categories of the market and how they think and why they think the way that they do. So customer analysis has to be very detailed and in-depth. Then you come to your internal environment, right? That is understanding forces that are somewhat within your control. And one of the ways to also analyze that is by doing a SWOT analysis. And with SWOT, you have to understand your strengths. What are your strengths vis-a-vis competitors, or other players within the market? What are the weaknesses that you have? What are the opportunities within the market? What are the potential threats? For example, competition, regulation, so many threats depending on what industry you're playing in, whether it's the service industry or the product industry. So understanding or doing a SWOT analysis is important. Guys, everything that I've explained in the past 10 minutes is just research and understanding situation analysis. And by the end of the class, when we're going through different marketing strategies that have developed in the past, there is no casting iron in terms of developing your situation analysis. For example, if you're like me that does a lot of pitches, right, on a normal day, they don't have time. The people that you're pitching to, they don't have time. So your situation analysis, while yes, backend, you've done your 15-page work and you can send to them later, your situation analysis can take like 2-3 pages and you're good, right? You've appreciated the environment, you've talked about competitors, you've done your customer analysis and you've analyzed it in a way that, makes sense. And under customer analysis, I haven't mentioned that you can also develop personas too as well. So personas is in terms of giving a personality to your potential customer. So you understand their demography, you understand the psychography, you understand the behavioral analysis, then you're defining them. For example, if you're let's say an energy drink that is trying to launch into the market for working professionals. So defining personas mean that you're naming category 1, market 1 as let's say Sean, for an example. You're talking about, you're identifying Sean's age, you identify her income level, the kind of potential job she'll work on, what are her pet peeves, what are things that she doesn't like, what is her working pattern like? Is she more of somebody that works, online, or a remote worker, or she goes to work from time to time? Things like that. So in customer analysis, you now have to develop personas to help you to be able to segment your different customers. Then finally, you can now bring that, from that, you can now say that the brand that I am working on, the energy drink, will be targeted at working professionals within their 20s to 30s that need energy drink as a boost to drive through, or be energetic through the crazy Lagos traffic. And by that, you have determined who your target audience is, because what this actually helps you, right? It helps you with how you communicate, the kind of message you present to them. So if it's working professionals, you know that the kind of message has to do with something that just makes her life easy, and so many other things. So I was saying that in the situation analysis, sometimes if you're doing a pitch, depending on who you're presenting it to, if it is, for example, if you're an entrepreneur like myself and I'm presenting it to clients, 2-3 pages, that's fine. If you're a marketing manager and you're trying to present it to a board, at that point, you have to use a lot of data to explain the situation within the market. Like sometimes we go as deep as saying, oh, there are 8 million people or 10 million people in Lagos. 10% of them have been observed to subscribe more to energy drink to give them the boost that they need where working is concerned. And this, they now quote the source and all of that. However, this is the pricing that they prefer based on so and so age. But if you're just a marketing executive that needs to send to a CMO that you report to, it has to be a lot detailed because you have to show workings, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's the situation analysis, right? Then there's the objective side, and your objectives have to be SMART. And when we say SMART, that's another acronym. So with all of this, there are lots of acronyms. Don't worry, you'll keep up. After this session, just go and do a lot of research on some of the things that we have talked about, and that will support you in creating your marketing strategy. So when I say SMART, it has to be specific, it has to be measurable, it has to be achievable, it has to be realistic, and it has to be time bound. For an example, I say that we want to increase leads by 20% in 3 months. So if you're a service brand, for example, and you're focused, for example, let's talk about a health tech brand, and you need a people within the pharmaceutical industry, you need pharmacists or chemists, so subscribe to your product. That means at this point, you've done your awareness campaign, they're aware, they know about your product. So you're running a lead generation campaign. So let's say because of your awareness product or campaign, you've had 100 people. So the lead generation, the marketing campaign is focused on lead generation. It means that you need to increase your leads by 20%. The 100 that you have, you're increasing it by 20%. But if it's a fresh campaign, no leads have been generated, you would say achieve 200 leads in 3 months or by the end of 2026. So in terms of critiquing your objectives or analyzing objectives, you have to say, okay, objective one, is it a SMART objective? Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it realistic? And is it a time bound? Right? Specific is in terms of the what. What are you trying to do? And this comes from your overall marketing campaign. If you're trying to create awareness, you know that what you're focusing on is in impressions. In this case, reach, finding people with our ads reach. So if it's awareness campaign, you're saying that we want to reach 300,000 by December 2020. So achieve a reach of 300,000 or achieve 300,000 reach by the end of 25 or by December 2025. Still talking about awareness. Are you going to focus on social media growth? So you say achieve 5,000 followers across all social media platforms by December 2025. And in terms of social media platforms, you're measuring the ones that your target audience will be at. You're talking about Facebook, you're talking about Twitter, you're talking about Instagram, TikTok, all of them. Or on Instagram, we would have achieved 500 followers by December 2025. Still on awareness, if it's going to be more of inquiries, it is achieve 300 inquiries. And I'm saying this because what if the campaign is not digital? It's a radio ad. It means that at every point you have the call to action, end of your radio jingle, so that you're able to measure effectively. If the TV ad, there's a call to action. If you're doing it on digital, there's a call to action so that you're measuring, effectively. So your goals need to be very smart. That this is easily on everybody in terms of what SMART goals, SMART objectives are. Specific, right? If you increase leads, that's not specific. If you just say achieve awareness, that's not specific. You have to be very focused on the what, and you have that you can measure, because here says increase leads. At the end of the day, we're coming to see how many leads have been created. Understand, because even guides the how of your campaign. You would have created a lead sheet. For Coca-Cola campaign, you could see is that they wanted to capture more of the younger generation. So they are measuring how many people within the younger generation bought a Coca-Cola drink, right? Through the data, whatever tools that they used to measure. At the end of the day, they also have decline within the Australian market. So at the end of the day, they are coming to measure what was the sales percentage in terms of increase from the beginning to the end of the campaign. And you saw other tricks because of how creative and innovative the campaign was. There were other things to measure. You saw the shares, you saw growth, which was empty. So there is another thing as well that we use in marketing called the PEST model. Paid and share and old media, and about advertising. We'll talk more of that. So after objectives, you move into your strategy, right? Is where you specify, of your customers from the customer analysis document you would have done, the targeting of your customers. So for segmentation, how you segment your customers is in terms of primary audience. So these are your primary audience that you're focused on. And Sorry, can you hear me now? Sorry, my internet logged me out. Yes, just cut off. Okay, just to confirm that you are following me so far. Are we together? Are we together? Is it explanatory enough or something that we need to do? Okay, perfect. I like it. I like it. Since the energy is still up, means that we're together. Okay, so yeah, let's go. So I was talking about segmentation. So in terms of segmentation, you have to segment your customers, for an example. Um, so segmentation in terms of your primary audience. So I wanted to use an example. So there is and what example can I use? Okay, let's use solar because that's what really comes to my head, right? So it's a solar product that is trying to target communities within the rural areas because they have challenges with electricity or they have challenges with power. So you know that at that point, your primary target audience are the community members, based on your research, really. Don't take your situation analysis off of this. But hypothetically speaking, we've not gone into the market to do research. And for your situation analysis too as well, customer analysis, you can either do primary research or secondary research. And secondary research is the kind of research that you do, you share surveys, what you see on the internet and all of that. For primary research, you're going to the market, you're going physically to get surveys, you're going physically to have focus group discussions just to ensure that you get the amount of data. Like departments are dedicated towards situation analysis and research and marketing. So research is very important in marketing, you can't take it out. But I'm going back to strategy. So we're talking about a solar brand or a solar panel, right? That is targeted at rural communities. This is more of a mass market. And so hypothetically speaking, this is us not doing research. We automatically see that 80% of our marketing campaigns will be focused on members of the rural families within the rural communities that need this product. Now, there's a 20% that has to be focused on government too as well. You cannot hear me. You cannot hear me. Right? Decent said you can't hear me. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can somebody confirm? Okay, perfect. Justin, thank you. So 20% is going to be focused on governments, for example, on the government, local government areas and all of that, because you need them to be able to succeed. You might need to partner with them to drive their innovation campaign, position them as innovative and supporting the community. So you can partner with them to implement the solar campaign within the community, if you get what I'm talking about. So that's what like 80-20 can be. So for some, there's 70, 20, 10. So they have the primary, and primary is usually your focus, right? And they have the secondary, 20%. These are potentials. I just have a 10% that you might just need to focus on too as well. And the interesting thing about secondary is that as you launch and you move into the market and you test and you optimize, they can evolve into becoming your primary audience, and your primary might just reduce into being a secondary audience. But you need to segment, then after you target, then you position in terms of what exactly is your messaging. And your messaging is developed based on your understanding your target audience. Share a Coke campaign was very focused on young millennials and it was just very direct. I don't know if all of us know Think Different by Apple. So what it just says is that if you're innovative, if you're young, if you're working professional and you want to be positioned as innovative, if you use Apple, you think differently. Just do it. If you are athletic, so for Nike, it's obvious that their primary target audience are athletes. Secondary would be people like you and I that want to think that we're athletics or believe that we're athletic, sorry. And tertiary will be every other person. So you will see that, in their positioning for Nike, that's why you see that they'll partner with football clubs for them to brand their jerseys. That's why you see that they are branding stadiums because their core focus are athletes, right? Their secondary are people like you and I that want to feel athletic. And in that position, in terms of understanding the athlete, They know that athletes want to be empowered to feel like they can just do it. And just doing it is a mind thing. They want to be empowered in terms of feeling that they can make anything happen. So that's why they launched the Just Do It campaign in the understanding of their segmentation and their targeting. So, just do it. And in your marketing strategy, you have to do the rationale. You have to write the rationale behind your message and understand that your message tagline, we call it big idea. It should not be more than 5 words, right? If it's more than five words, it just becomes very boring. That's what I'm telling you about. Think different. We're talking about just do it. There's Red Bull, whose tagline is "We give you wings." Right. And you will see that with their marketing campaign, Red Bull is an energy drink. With their marketing campaign, with whatever they do, it's positioned towards looking like they give people wings, right? That's when you see, I've forgotten, there was somebody that was working on an electrical pole that was sponsored by Red Bull here in Lagos, like working on an electrical pole, holding nothing here in Lagos. And if you see a lot of their campaigns on their social, it's looking like everybody literally has imaginary wings to be able to do what they necessarily do. So positioning first and the message or the big idea is very important. Then you now come to how, like the tactics, how are you going to now communicate it across board? And there's something that we call the communication mix. In my next slide, we will discuss that further. So it's either you're using the 4 Ps or 7 Ps of marketing, or you're using the communication mix. 7 Ps, 4 Ps, or 7 Ps of marketing will just be more focused on your marketing strategy. But if it's an integrated marketing communication strategy, you're using more of the communication mix. Since I'm going to explain that in the next slide, I'm not going to dwell on it so much, right? So you've identified, understand that this is based on your targeting, right? This is based on your message. You're now using the communication mix. You have to identify, once you've understood the demographic, you've understood their behavior, how they think, in creating your personas, you would see the kind of things, where they are at. For example, where they are at, what they read, the kind of influencers that they listen to. That will now influence the communication mix or the channels that you will select. For example, if you're targeting Gen Zs, let's use Gen Zs because they're the reigning thing in town, right? Even though you want to do TV ads, you have to be specific about the where. And very limitedly so. I mean, for Gen Zs, you know that it's going to be more focused on social and events. Events and kind of events that you do have to be events that create like great experiences. But even if you're on social, you have to be more on TikTok if you want to target Gen Zs, depending on Gen Zs anyway. But we're talking about general Gen Zs, not necessarily working professionals. You have to be on TikTok, you have to be on Instagram, not necessarily LinkedIn. And you're talking about LinkedIn, you know that your product is more for working professionals, if it's a B2B, business to business product. So you need to understand all these things when you're selecting your communications mix. So if we're talking about advertising, depending on your target audience, depending on the customer persona that you have built, are you going to advertise on TV? Are you going to advertise on radio? Are you going to advertise on digital? Are you going to advertise using billboards? And if you're going to advertise using billboards, the where that you advertise also matters too as well. If you're targeting the luxury market, you know that the billboards that you'll be using are more billboards that are located at Ikoyi, Banana Island, for an example, located at a Lekki, for an example, located at, in Magodo. If you're doing TV ads too, and you're targeting luxury market, you know that you're going to target more of platforms like a CNN, in Nigeria, maybe an Arise to do TV ads. If you're talking about radio, they didn't necessarily listen to radio, but if it's Gen Zs and you want to do radio, you're looking at a Cool FM or millennials, let's say millennials for radio. We need to do research to know if Gen Z study listen to radio these days. If millennial, you're looking at a Cool FM, you're looking at a Sound City, maybe then, for other audiences, you can now talk about an Inspiration FM and all of that. So in understanding your audience, it helps you to know not just the communication mix to say, but after you've selected one or all of the communication mix, how do you communicate it and where do you communicate it to with them? So after that, you now talk about, what you're going to be saying or communicating across all of these different platforms. If it's digital, what are you going to be saying? After you've selected all of that, you just break it down. What is going to be your digital strategy to communicate the tagline that you select? For example, if it's think different, digital strategy, you create a couple of videos, you share with the influencers to make it happen. If it's advertising, you create a TV ad, you share with TV stations to make it happen, depending on whatever it is. When you're done with your strategy slash tactics, you now talk about action, and action is in terms of creating like an implementation schedule. Action is where you break things down into phases, right? Remember, I talked about it's important that you unveil in phases so that at different phases you are measuring and you're coming back to test whatever you're measuring. An implementation schedule is okay, phase one, this is what we're going to do, this is who is responsible for it, and this is when it's going to happen. So you usually have like a detailed implementation sheet identifying all of that. Then finally a budget too as well in terms of action, because the strategy tactics that you have identified at different points, you need a budget to make it happen. Then control, this applies to remember the SMART objectives that we have measured, we have talked about. How do you measure it? What are the KPIs? You said it's a lead generation campaign. So for lead generation campaigns, we're talking about the number of leads. We're talking about the cost per lead. We're talking about the cost of customer acquisition, the customer acquisition cost. So, it's all encompassing. If it's awareness, what you're measuring is the number of impressions. You're measuring reach, you're measuring likes, you're measuring share. You see, for the Coca-Cola campaign, they talked about shares, they talked about how many times they trended, they talked about impressions, they talked about their YouTube growth. So it was all encompassing. Sorry, excuse me. So in your control side of things, this is what you're measuring. You're coming back to measure your objectives that you had set. Sorry, just going into the chat box. Yeah, we all love Nike and Red Bull's tagline. I mean, that's just one of it. There are a lot of interesting campaigns that have been introduced ahead of time, and maybe we would have another like 3 months course for just marketing, and we're just analyzing campaigns because I don't think 2 hours are enough to talk about it. But yeah, so as I was saying, you need to measure your objectives, right, that you have set. And in terms of that, you need to identify, for example, if you're like me, an agency that's doing a pitch to a client, what are you going to use to measure? So if it's leads, you're using your CRM tool, for an example. There's Zoho CRM tool, and CRM is customer relationship management tool to measure the leads that were generated, customer lifetime value tool as well, customer acquisition costs. You're just going to divide the budget that you spent on marketing by customers that were actually acquired. Customers that were acquired are customers that paid for your product. So just divide that, and you're able to identify the cost per customer acquired. So there are just different tools that you use. And if it's digital awareness that you're measuring, impressions, we have Facebook analytics, backend, Instagram analytics. If you're doing website visit, Google Analytics. If it's app downloads, we're talking about Google Firebase and so much more. So if you've observed, I love digital because digital just literally helps with measurement. But if you are doing traditional, there are ways to measure it. Now, for example, billboards, they're usually measuring the number of cars that pass per time, then you're able to do your projections based on that. With radio, you're looking at listenerships. How many people listen to this particular program, and the radio station is able to give you that data. If you're looking at TV, you're looking at viewers and measuring it effectively. If you're looking at newspapers and print ads, you're looking at readership, for example. So that is it under SOSTAC, your planning framework and planning your marketing campaign or integrated marketing campaign accordingly. So, I talked about elements of the communications mix, and we're going to talk about them shortly, right? Yeah, key performance indicators. Okay. Yeah. Leads. Okay, somebody said talk more leads, and what does it mean? So, how do I use you for an example? Okay, so you see so many digital ads and they say sign up now. You put in your details when they say sign up now. At that point, you've become a lead. So yes, for events, they just do that a lot. So you want to go for an event and they're like, register now, you put in your details. At that point, you become a lead, so they can sell potential events to you, right? Or you're trying to subscribe for a product or a service and you see sign up now, you put in your details. At that point, you become a lead. So I hope that's very clear. People have answered the they've answered the question of KPIs and all that. You know what? I think if I go in and answer questions right now, I'm just going to be distracted. So when we're done, we'll just have time to answer questions. So the marketing communications mix is promotion mix, all the tools that you can use to communicate your value and persuade customers. Guys, at every point, marketing has evolved from just being what's that thing called? Just being, a product, from a product orientation, from to marketing orientation is not customer orientation. The focus here at every point is your customers. So you have to spend some time in analyzing and understanding your customer behavior for you to be able to do anything, for you to be able to select any of the channels that you want to use. And elements of the communications mix. Now we have advertising. So advertising is anything that you pay for, right? Paid promotion through mass media. And for mass media, we're looking at TV. So that's when you hear things like TV ads, which usually start from TV commercial. We're looking at radio. So it's divided into two. So we have the traditional form of advertising, which is everything that is not online, and the digital form of advertising. So traditional form of advertising, we have TV, we have radio, we have something that you call out of home advertising, in terms of billboards, in terms of flyers and handbills, and so much more. And you go to Ikoyi roundabout, go to Lekki, phase one, you see all of those large billboards or experiential boards that they have. You see Mattel's large building if you're on the island too as well. That's a form of advertising, anything that's literally paid for. What is an example did I want to use? Okay, you see lamp posts too as well. You're going on Third Milan Bridge from end to end. So, and a large percentage of time, advertising is used to create awareness, right? Remember the different phases that I mentioned in terms of advertising, in terms of marketing, sorry. You have the interest side of things. Sorry, you have the awareness side of things, you have the interest side of things, you have the desire side of things, and you have the action side of things. So most times you use advertising to create some sort of awareness, right? A lot of times, whether it's a billboard, whether it's a radio jingle, whatever it is, you use advertising to just do that. Public relations is just to help you manage your brand reputation, right? It can be used for some sort of awareness depending on how you just use it, but it's everything that you do to ensure that you have a favorable perception in the mind of your publics, in the mind of your target audience. So that's when you hear things like PR campaign, and a lot of times you use the media and also engage key stakeholders to build that brand reputation. So in public relations, we have something called stakeholder mapping. And what you do is identifying all the interest groups that are very important to the work that you do, are very important to your organization. First, you have your external publics, so it's how do you communicate to them consistently, and what channels we use to communicate consistently to show or build a good brand reputation. And how you do it, you use a lot of press releases, identifying that this is what you're doing for your customers, this is what you're doing within the market. There's also something called opinion articles and editorial, which is a lot more different, which is a lot more detailed. There's also something called corporate communications. This is how you're communicating that you're a great company on social media, the work that you're doing. So a lot of businesses like B2Bs, do this a lot. They're not necessarily targeted at direct consumers like yourself and myself. Targeted are more of businesses or even service brands. They do this a lot, right? Brands that are not necessarily for the mass market, that just want to focus on showing, communicating intent, communicating that they're a good company or communicating that they're a great company. They use digital for corporate communications and the PR side of things. So in terms of stakeholder mapping, I mentioned your normal general customers or consumers in whatever case it is. There is your suppliers, if you're an FMCG brand, how do you communicate with them? For example, Flour Mills of Nigeria, I've worked with them and they're very big on celebrating their suppliers, communicating with their suppliers, having events, creating different campaigns where they celebrate them specifically because they are important to the work that they do. Suppliers/distributors. There's the government too as well. What is your government relations like? Brands like Flour Mills of Nigeria are very, very big on government relations too as well. And they have somebody dedicated to that side of things. Right. Okay. Yeah, so and they have somebody dedicated to that side of things, right? So people, for those that have investors, there's also something called investor relations. And you see that's when they release their annual reports for those brands, for those of us that work with brands that are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So you see that they release something called annual reports. You go on their website, they're always talking about their share price. They have investor newsletters. So because investors are very vital to the work that they do, so they have something called investor relations. So in PR, there's something called the stakeholder mapping, and it's a lot more detailed because you have to identify the message that you'll be communicating to the different stakeholders because they're different people and different interest groups. They have different interests. Investors are just very focused on growth. How much are you making? Consumers are focused on how do you meet my needs. Governments are focused on how are you ensuring that you are compliant and you're working within the rules and regulations of the environment. So identifying all these different interest groups is so very important, and how you just map them and communicate with them using different PR tools is interesting. Now, do you know the interesting thing about marketing communications, guys? Marketing is so deep and it takes curiosity. So as marketers, we have to be very curious. We have to be very observant. It takes curiosity for you to understand everything here. I mean, it took a lot of curiosity for me to observe and understand everything in marketing. Because if you look at multinationals, all of these elements of communication mix, they either do one or all of it. And they have different departments in charge of it. It's only small businesses that will just hire marketing leads and select the one that works for them. So for example, in a brand or a multinational like Coca-Cola, there's head of advertising, and under advertising, there's head of media buying. There's somebody in charge of PR, there's somebody in charge of branding, you have brand managers, there's digital marketing managers, depending on which applies and all of that. And if you're entrepreneurs, even within the agency field, these are separated. We have advertising agencies, we have PR agencies, we have direct marketing agencies, personal selling, digital marketing agencies, events marketing agencies, just depending on which. So I just needed to chip that in for your information. Okay, so we have direct marketing, and it's one-on-one outreach, right? You see a large percentage, and this applies for things that have to do with direct marketing. You can't necessarily use direct marketing as a form of awareness. It works only when people are aware of your brand. For example, the reason why we will look at a message or an SMS that MTN sends is because you already know MTN, you already use them, so you'll be willing to look at them. But if a random brand sends it to you, especially in Nigeria, where trust is an issue, you're just going to discard it. So things like direct marketing, you introduce it if you want them to be desirous of your product or interested in something. For example, MTN only sends that when there's like a new promo that subscribe to this and 10 people will get 1 million naira. And, or you go to stores, you've put in your data, they now start to send you SMS. So direct marketing is usually just very relevant in terms at the interest/desire phase. So you're trying to get them to convert. Then you use direct marketing, even emails, and emails have been proven to be one of the best tools for return on marketing spend if you actually use it well. Because a brand that I love that I think has done email marketing well is a brand like Cowrie Wise. They were the first that I experienced that personalized that email marketing conversation up by Cowrie Wise, for an example. So then the energy has dropped a little bit, but when they first launched, they were brand that did it. They were brands that did it well. So and now there's also WhatsApp business. Another is push notifications, right? And I think a brand that currently does push notifications well is PiggyVest. I don't know how many people use PiggyVest on this call, but when it comes to push notifications, it's like, oh, you don't have to celebrate every milestone, save, and they're always like in your face. And then it's like, it's my money, what's your business? So they use push notification well. Remember, if PiggyVest was just a random brand sending push notifications to you, you're not going to be interested. So for you to use direct marketing, it means that audience is already aware of what you're doing and it's just going to be effective. Sales promotion are more of discounts, and you see a lot of e-commerce brands using it like that. Buy five, get one free. During Black Friday, there's a lot of sales. That's why something like Black Friday was introduced. A lot of sales promotions are done and had. Digital marketing, which is I think during your digital marketing and ads campaign, ads session, you deep dive more into digital marketing strategies. I'm a big fan of digital marketing because you can measure really, but for you to be a great marketing professional, you have to have an understanding of all the elements of the communication mix. Then what you can now do is, yes, I have an understanding, then can now specialize. I mean, the digital marketing environment today is so much saturated. So if you can find another place or another angle, it literally helps. And digital marketing, online tools, and digital marketing itself also has its own mix. And we start from content marketing. There's the need to understand that content is king. But however, for you to create content, you have to understand your target market and content in all forms. We're talking about normal sales, and we're talking about blogs. We're talking about white papers if you're targeting more B2Bs. We're talking about videos. We're talking about podcasts. And you see brands being very innovative with content. There's GT Banks there with Indani TV. There's Access Bank with Accelerate TV. The brands are not very being innovative and going out overboard where content is concerned. So out of everything, even for all the communications mix that we mentioned, content is concerned and it is driven first by your target audience, your brand, and the message that you want to communicate. We also have social media marketing, and understand that content is also dependent on the channel. For example, LinkedIn is positioned for thought leadership. Instagram is like an aesthetics walking brochure. For Twitter, it's microblogging, super short. For TikTok, it's strictly video. So you have to understand the different channels to know how to communicate or create content effectively. For YouTube, it's strictly videos, and type of videos is relevant to the type of target market too as well. Then we have social media. Understanding social media, their strengths and their weaknesses work matter too as well. Knowing how to use Instagram effectively. There was a brand that I was studying, I think it's Glossier. They had no other strategy than selling on Instagram, and they made millions of dollars only on Instagram. That is how that kind of brand had leveraged the power and the influence of a platform like Instagram, right? They didn't, and there's some brands that are just for LinkedIn, especially brands that are positioned for B2B. Understanding that LinkedIn is a B2B brand, right? Understanding that B2B, LinkedIn is positioned for business to business. So you have to mastering the social media platforms, what to communicate and how to communicate at different points matters too as well. And in the creation of your content, I want to mention the world has evolved from, buy now, get one free. I'm selling this, from salesy to more problem solving, to more value-driven content, to more of understanding the pain points of your target markets and creating content that address it. And in that way, they're like, you get me. It's not like you're coming to say, I'm selling Coke, buy it now, or I'm selling a dress, buy it now. But you understand that, oh, this is cold and these people need to be covered. So come from the angle of why cotton works during winter or why cotton works during dry season. You come from that different angle and you have a conversation to them on why that works. And they cannot see themselves in it. People subscribe to brands that they see as an extension of themselves. So if they don't see themselves in you, then they're not willing to buy it. So there's the personal selling side of things, which is more of face to face. It's more of direct selling. And you see real estate agents do this. If you go to malls, you see a lot of pop-ups where you can just walk there and you get people to personally sell to you, as well. We have all of those different things everywhere. There's the experiential side of things, which can be divided into two. So experiential also has like sales activation. So if you go to the markets every other day, you see people creating experiences in this part of the world, in markets and all of that, people are creating different experiences, and they're just selling. Then we have conferences. When Nor wanted, I don't know if we followed that campaign, when Nor wanted to launch their unveil their new set of influencers, which were about a lot. You say they created an experience around it, which was very unique. You go to AMVCA, you see brands creating a lot of experiences. So experiences can also be created in partnerships with people that already have a platform, or people that already have a community, or you create an experience independently for your brands. That's why you see a lot of fintech brands, for an example, launching conferences and creating experiences around that, so that you can go there, you can experience the brand. And experience has its own in terms of return on investment based on the kind of experience that you create. I mean, there was a tech conference that I was in charge of. And for me, what I wanted to use that event to do is defend to a company that was not necessarily big on spending in marketing, that you can generate some form of return on investment on marketing. So I used that event to launch it. And what I did was now find partners that will be willing to sponsor the event. And we raised about $100,000 to $300,000 for the event. Then because we got the targeting right, there were deals that were signed and the companies benefited from it till now. So if you do or implement all these mixes, or the elements of the communication mix appropriately, in a way that matters and in a way that is effective, value, profitability will be automatically generated. So that is it on communication mix. So I'm going on to say that a brand is no longer what we tell the customer or consumer it is what consumers tell each other. It is. For example, Bolt, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, I wasn't a fan of for a long time because of their customer service. On social, they're communicating one thing. This is what we are. Where right efficiency and effectivity is concerned, it is us. But at some point, consumers were saying that Bolt is terrible. They were being associated with bad publicity, kidnapping, and so much more at some point. And at that point, it forms a perception. And when you think about Bolt, this is what you think about because of what other people have said about it. So we've moved from a world where brands come and say this is who we are. No, it's consumers that will say that this is what this brand is, and this is how it makes me feel. Yes, we go behind the scenes as marketing experts, right, and create all these different strategies. But at the end of the day, if you don't create it, if you don't co-create with your customers and ensure that as you implement, you're implementing for your customers, it's really going to be a huge mess. So what is integrated marketing communications? We've talked about that. It's having one message and communicate it consistently across all the different channels in a way that is a seamless and coordinated brand experience across the platforms, touch points, and audiences. Let me read from the notes. Integrated marketing communications is a strategic marketing approach that unifies and coordinates all brand messages across platforms, touchpoints, and audiences to deliver a consistent and compelling customer experience. So it's not just a collection of campaigns, it's the glue that binds all the elements that we have talked about. And at the end of the day, there's one thing that matters, right? You're ensuring that the seamless experience is created. You wouldn't want a situation where you're communicating something online. Then billboard, we're seeing something entirely different. For example, we go online, we're seeing color blue, on your billboard, we're seeing color green. You go online, you're saying, oh, we're a lit brand. On billboard, we're saying, buy us now, we will never fail you. You go to your physical location, you're saying something different. You go to events, you're saying something different. And if you're a fast-moving consumer good brand, we go in store to a supermarket or something, I was saying something different. The point of integrated marketing communications is ensuring that it's a seamless experience, seamless communication across all touch points. And what it does is to reinforce your brand perception, to maximize communication impact, build trust, and loyalty as well. And let's take an example of Apple. When you interact with Apple, for an example, how do you feel, right? Do you feel some sort of consistency? And what it just shows us is that it's beyond even what you communicate. It's also driven and into your products, right? Apple says you will think different. not only when you use our products, when you experience our products, or whatever you do from the product. And that thing different has been applied to how they create. Anyway, so I'm using Apple just because I'm an Apple fan, right? And that experience has been, sorry to Samsung fans, that experience has been implemented across everything from the kind of modern, sleek designs that they have to how they communicate in terms of simplicity. Okay, don't worry, if you did see the other slide, it will be shared with you. So this is it. It was talking about the purpose of IMC and how it reinforces brand perception, maximizes communication impact, and builds trust and loyalty. So yeah, I was talking about Apple and all of that. You know, when you experience Apple, there's a feeling that you have in terms of sleek, in terms of luxury. And the interesting thing is that there's some consistency across board in terms of the design and in terms of what they're communicating. You're not going to go to their website and seeing one thing. You're going to social media and saying one thing. I know in this market, before Apple was not big on billboards, but in the Nigerian market, they've started to do it. If you're on the island and you go to Ibadan, you see a large Apple billboard there. You go to Computer Village, you see that, you know, everywhere. So there's some sort of consistency across board to the product experience, and even when you're watching an ad. So doing a brief history of IMC, pre-1980s, it was advertising and PR. 80s to the 90s, branding now emerged. So now brands are very focused of infusing branding their products, packaging their products in a way that it resonates with their customers across board. Then in the 2000s, that's when digital started. 2010s, social media and mobile era. And the interesting thing about social media is when social media started, it was purely for social interactions. And as we evolved, or as social media evolved, started to be more for corporate communications and brands using it for so much more. And that's when things like programmatic ads, digital advertising too was also introduced. There was the rise of influencers too as well. I promise you it has been interesting to see, because if you look at 23 decades ago, there was nothing like influencers. But as we evolved, influencers have also been introduced, and influencers of today are very relevant, especially in building your digital strategy. I didn't mention that when I was talking about digital strategy, because I think that you get more of that during your digital marketing class. But in selecting your influencer strategy too as well, you need to be sure about which is it macro, micro, or nano influencers. And the reason why I talk about this is because you see a lot of brands doing influencer marketing wrong. They just jump on next influencers because they create big buzz, but they forget the fact that marketing, whatever form of marketing, is always driven towards whatever form of marketing is always driven towards generating value, right? Including your influencer marketing. So you need to be very careful. Macro influencers are more of celebrities, but macro, micro, nano are more of niche focused influencers. So if you're focused on travel, for an example, the influencers that are focused to influence the travel market. For example, Itayo I know. If you're focused on food, there are influencers that are focused on convincing or influencing the food market. You have people like Chef T, Ife's Kitchen, and so much more. So just wanted to touch a bit on influencer marketing. But now in the 2020s, or the world that we now see ourselves in, there's now some sort of IMC maturity. This is where integrated marketing channel communications has now evolved and matured. There's so many channels. Audiences expose themselves to different things on different days at different points. Attention spans are very short. So you have to ensure that whatever messaging you're projecting is consistent across board. We've done the analysis of a share code campaign. I asked for other observations that I mean, sorry to Samsung users, really. Yeah, I knew Samsung users were going to talk. They are not the best at keeping quiet. But anyway, we've talked about the share code campaign. We've talked about their marketing communication strategy, integrated marketing communication strategy. I don't know if there are any observations that you have, feel free to put it in the chat box. I mean, in the previous times, Coca-Cola will run a TV ad, or a TV campaign, does press releases, does sales activation, but they're always very independent. But the Share a Cook campaign was one of the greatest strategies for an integrated approach to marketing. And it was the same message across board. It was the same experience from social media. And the interesting thing about that is because it was great, it now drove user generated content too as well. Experiential too was great, digital too with the name finding thing that they did, experiential with the vending machines and so much more. Vending machines is not necessarily popular in this side of the world anyway. Um, so this is the next slide is just talking about why traditional campaigns are no longer enough. There's the side of channel explosion, right? Today's customer is on digital, they're with their emails, they're listening to podcasts. For example, if Nike releases a new shoe, they are doing a sneak peek via a TikTok influencer. They're launching a video on YouTube. There's a limited release alert in app. There's an augmented reality experience in store. They're using Instagram Reels with user reviews and all of that. It had been impossible in the past. But for your brand to be relevant, you must show up everywhere, relevantly so. But not only that, you have to speak with one voice. And there's now customer control over content, right? Skipping ads is easy. So you have to ensure that you are showing up in where you matter. For example, if they skip it on YouTube, they're saying it on Billboard. If they're not saying it on Billboard, they're saying it on Instagram. If they're not saying it on Instagram, they're attending some sort of events that they like and they're seeing you. And we're seeing a situation where people trust other people over brands. So brands must be part of conversations, not just loud speakers. Their shorter attention span. In today's world, you have about 3 to 8 seconds to capture attention. If your brand voice isn't immediately recognizable, people scroll away. Consistency, increased speed of recognition. There's the need for real-time brand resonance too as well. Trends are moving fast. Brands need to show up on time and on brand. I mean, we can all remember the NSAS movement and how Nigerian brands pushed to post and support. Now, with some brands, it was very much in alignment, but for some brand, it was a complete miss, right? And it affected their brand in a negative way. Another example was the KFC wedding thing where a man proposed to his woman at KFC and somebody insulted them, and a lot of brands started to jump on that. There was another one about the woman that used to wake up for her husband to cook by 5 a.m. And a lot of brands jumped on that. It's good to jump on it, right? But you have to ensure that at every point it is in relevance to who your brand is at different points in time. What are the consumer expectations in the digital age? There's the omni-channel behavior, and I have talked about omnichannel behavior as much as possible. The world is hyper connected. They're moving seamlessly across all the different touch points, both online and offline. And the expectations are shaped by the platforms that you use every day. So whether it's WhatsApp, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, physical spaces, stores and events, and even WhatsApp business chats. So you need to be present, at different points. Understanding that omni-channel is showing up with one voice, one tone, one experience across other platforms, across all the platforms. It's different from, multi-channel. Multi-channel is showing up in many places, but showing up in many places means that you can show up differently in many places. But the point of this conversation, the point of integrated marketing communications is you have one voice in terms of share cook, one voice in terms of think different, one voice in terms of just do it, and so much more. You have to ensure that wherever you are choosing to show up, which is relevant to your customer, you show up with one voice. Consumers now expect brands to know who they are via personalization. And we have a lot of brands that get personalization right. We have brands like Netflix, for an example. Why do you think that when you scroll or you log into your Netflix platform, whatever they're showing is irrelevant to your interests? Because they understand you and they built in personalization into their strategy. I talked about Bye Carry Wise through the emails that looks like they speak to you, and lots of brands are now using it. What they've done in terms of their purchase history and preferences. You see a lot of e-commerce brands using this, and that's why sometimes when you go on an e-commerce brand, if it's a Jumia, if it's a Temu, whatever it is, and you've abandoned your cart, because they understand you, they're sharing different options that align with whatever interest is in your cart or something that you might have clicked on their website just to get you to be interested. You need to understand what they value, what is their tone of voice, what is their style, what is their urgency. One of the brand that I feel like was not bad in terms of understanding tone of voice with their rebranding was Mirinda. Mirinda previously used to be, just orange and maybe a bit of green. But when they were rebranding, it was obvious that they were trying to position the brand for the Gen Z market. And that's when they introduced some colors like purple, blue, and all of that. And in terms of positioning, they got the Gen Z influencers like Prissy, Eniolua, and all the other ones to as well to influence. So in communicating effectively, these factors are important. And who are some of the brands doing it well? We have brands like Amazon. Amazon is promising you easy, consistent delivery, and you see that in whatever they do. For example, look at this ad, shopping is on Prime. So you see that across board, across all their different touch points. The messaging, the tone, the style, everything is the same. We've talked about Apple, from their products to their comms. It is it. I mean, look at this picture, look at the design, look at the logos, look at the entire product experience. It's literally the same. And we're talking about Nigeria, GT Bank. The exciting thing about GT Bank, right, is if you see that GT Bank logo, it's consistent across the color, that color orange. And nobody, it's quite difficult to pull it off, right? It's consistent across board, right? I know that the world was angry at GT Bank for a while, but when it comes to branding, they have gotten it right. The same experience is what you get at GT Fashion Week, GT Food and Drink, and all the other things that they implement. It's consistent, even on their mobile app, the GT World experience too, is consistent across board. Um, so in terms of ensuring that you are consistent across different platforms, what are the four layers? We have the message, and we talked about that in detail at the beginning, understanding your customer, understanding their pain points, understanding insights, understanding their preferences, creating a message around that, and communicating it consistently across all the different touch points. Brand promise, for example, what brand promise and what you're known for, and is it reinforced everywhere? Then there's the visual identity side of things in terms of the kind of designs that you introduce. It has to be the same, and in branding, you will see how to implement this. So large percentage of brands would have started from their brand strategy, which identifies their mission, their vision, their brand personality, their brand personality, their brand values, unique value proposition, and all of that, that will now influence creating a brand guideline. So a lot of brands have something called a brand guideline, which has colors, which has fonts, which has the tone of voice, which has how the brand should be applied across customer touch points. That means the different things that customers will come in contact with. I see that the chat is going on. Okay. Oh, okay. That it's just conversations being happening. I can honestly see your questions, so that would be safe till after. Yeah, we're supposed to have taken attendance already. No, yeah, message from the call. That should have happened. Like the link should have been shared, please. So I was talking about visual identity, right? So how and that also communicates to the ad. So there's a brand guideline, and if we still have time, I'll show you what a brand guideline looks like, because that helps you understand, for example, why does why do you think that when you see an Apple ad, you automatically know it? I'm trying to bring that up to see whether we can just review right now on this call. So why do you think that when you see an Apple ad, it's just very easy for you to know it? When you see an Amazon ad, for an example, it's easy for you to be able to know it and for you to spot it. Okay, let me see if I can just share this brand guideline. Let me stop sharing and show you what the sample looks like. Yeah, I think we can work with this. So yeah, this is a sample of a brand guideline, right? So, it's a logo development. It shows you everything, visual direction, logos. It shows you what to do and what not to do. So in the creation of your integrated marketing communications campaign, having a guideline is important, right? For those that will handle it personally, or for those that will give it to agencies to work on and to handle. Yes, I'm just showing you this. So it shows you how the website will look. Shows you the kind of tone of voice, colors, secondary colors, primary colors, do's and don'ts in terms of arrangements. It shows you how designs on social media will look. So now you understand why, you go to an IBM, there's some sort of consistency across board. And this is just one of it. It shows you kind of photographs to take. So when you're creating your TV ads, you already know what to take and how to take it. So it's very detailed. And this is just one example. So this is typography. And what you can do, this brand guideline is usually a compass that people pass to anybody, designers, marketing agents, and all that. Imagery, all of that. And some are usually even more detailed than this. I just want to show you a quick sample, right? Some are usually actually more detailed than this. They go as far as showing you for flyers, how your flyers should look across board. So, having a consistent visual identity is important. Then there's the customer experience. Do people feel the same way across on your web, on social, when they go physically to your stores? So that is important in terms of consistency. Then tone of voice, how are you communicating? Today, are you professional? Tomorrow, are you witty? The other day, are you informal? Brands like KFC, they're very consistent across board. Even brands like Chicken Republic here in Africa, they're very consistent across board. So you will want to be also consistent where your tone of voice, is concerned. Okay, so we've already reviewed the case study. I'm not going to talk too much about um, um, the Share a Cook campaign. So what is the role of IMC in modern marketing? Research indicates that brands with consistent messaging across multiple touch points experience a 23% increase in revenue in comparison to those with fragmented framework. So why does it matter? It increases brand recognition. It helps to integrate successfully multiple more channels. 86% of consumers expect brands to maintain consistent message or experience across board. Companies with strong omni-channel strategies retain a large percentage of their customers. And how do you create a seamless brand experience? By telling a compelling story. You're using multiple touch points. And remember that at every point, the multiple touch points that you're using has to be in line with your target market. Encourage interactions, leverage analytics. That's why I say that you have to keep observing and observing for a personalized marketing experience. Yeah, so we've reviewed this. We talked about Share Cook campaign and how they integrated traditional marketing into everything seamlessly to just contribute that. They increased sales by over 7% in the first year. Social media posts as well was over 500,000. It expanded to over 80 countries. Their brand engagement skyrocketed and so much more. What's the future of IMC and how you can apply it to your brand? From content, conversation to co-creation. So initially, it was content creation, and I mentioned that a lot of brands were focused on pushing messages, making noise, and trying to be seen. Then there was now conversation in terms of trying to engage in a two-way conversation, right, or communication. but now it's co-creating. Customers are now creating with you in terms of what do they want, what are their needs. You're using analytics to understand which of the contents they subscribe to more based on their likes, engagements, shares, comments. Then you're now subsequently including that into your social media calendar or your digital calendar or your out of home campaigns. So now we're in a point where there's some sort of co-creation. So data and tech are also the future backbone of IMC. We have things like smart automation for email sequences using brands and channels like MailChimp. Now there's the introduction of AI across board, from ChatGPT to Canva AI to MailChimp AI, and they're streamlining brand consistency and customer generation. We've talked about customer segmentation too as well, and how is enabling targeted storytelling. For example, one of the best personalization strategy, best integrated marketing personalization strategy is Spotify Wrapped. Because of Spotify Wrapped, brands are now picking that up. Apple is picking that up and all of that. And you see how big they go with that conversation. And you see consistency across all the different touch points. So that is their campaign. For example, I don't use Spotify, but because of Spotify Wrapped, I'm usually very interested to see the kind of music that I listen to and somebody giving me an analysis of what that really is. So the Spotify Wrapped is one of the biggest personalized integrated marketing communications campaign too as well that we have. So there is an activity, however, we're not going to do this activity now. We're going to use this as an assignment, right? So there is an IMC planner. And with this planner, what you're going to do is create your campaign objective. And it has to be smart. Identify target audience, core message, channels to integrate, content ideas, engagement strategies, success metrics, based on what we have learned and understood today. So the team is going to share this with you behind the scenes, and we're just going to do that as an assignment. There's another classwork that we have, and I don't know if we had the time for that too as well, that I will share with you now. So we'll talk about it. I think that, yeah, we can do the classwork shortly, but that is going to be, I'm just going to get like 2-3 people to just talk about it. But okay, so let me quickly talk about key takeaways for brands. Personalization is powerful. Integrated channels, integration across channels is key. User-generated content drive engagement. Experiential marketing enhances emotional connection. That's something that we can learn from the Coca-Cola Share Code campaign. Okay, so I want us to analyze, and you're going to raise up your hand, right? I'm just going to be quiet for the next 5 minutes. You're going to pick a brand, right? And I want you to analyze their marketing efforts across board. So when I say across board, we'll focus on digital marketing, social media, websites, and all of that. So, and I pick a brand of your choice in 5 minutes, and I will come back, be quiet for 5 minutes. When it's 11:58, I will come back and select members of the class that would just be able to do just about 5 people. If you want to share your screen, you can do that. Oh no, I don't think you have the right to share your screen. We're just going to talk through it, right? So you just pick a brand, talk about them, and are they truly, integrated mostly on digital. Look at their tone of voice, look at their imagery, look at their colors, look at how they communicate, and if possible, the kind of influencers that you use. And let's talk about if they are consistent across board. So by 11:58, I'm gonna call 5 people. First 5 to raise up their hands anyway. I hope that's noted. Okay, so I just saw the question on what is a business strategy and what is a marketing strategy. So I mean business strategy is more long term and is broader. So it's everything that you're putting in place or all the roadmap, the plan that you develop to drive a company's growth, which is all encompassing. And we're talking about your operation strategy that contributes to it, your HR strategy, your finance strategy. It's just really all encompassing your marketing strategy. What else is on the business strategy? So everything, for example, you say that you want to be, you have a vision, right? To be the most to recognize as the most preferred marketing communications company out of Africa. So you need to develop a strategy, a business strategy to achieve that. And there's certain things that you measure in terms of revenue, customer acquisition, talent, the operational side of things too as well, legal side of things, what's going to be your legal strategy, and so much more. But marketing strategy is just focused on marketing, promoting your services and goods, and customer acquisition. I hope that is clear. So in terms, oh, it's 11:58. I see two hands already raised. That is, I'm telling you, you guys are blowing my mind. I love it. Tools that can help in customer acquisition. So in calculating customer, is it in terms of acquiring customers or calculating customer acquisition cost? That's not too clear. But if it's in calculating customer acquisition cost, you just need to identify what your marketing or advertising spend is and divide it by the customers acquired. I cannot take all, so I'm going to start with Martina. Martina, hi. Ikechukwu Martina. If you're speaking, you're okay. I was scared I was speaking to myself. Well, Martina, if you're speaking, you're muted. If not, I'm just going to move to the next person. All right, Adeton.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, Martina, we can hear you now. Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I really want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. So, without further ado, let me just get to it. I want to talk about a well-recognized brand, Spotify.
Right.
Spotify is a music app. I mean, a lot of us use Spotify, and I feel Spotify has really, really, really made themselves known in the social media world, and they really did a lot of work regarding their digital marketing methods. And I remember you talked about how you talked about us mentioning about influencers and how they were able to use that culture to like stay relevant, build loyalty with people. And Spotify has a lot of users. Like they have definitely over 500 million users right now globally, and they are one of the competitive brands. They are going up against Apple Music, Amazon Music, a lot of other music apps. And I feel Spotify has a voice that really makes them close to like our generation, Gen Z. And that's like they have a playful voice. They have something relatable. They always have this sense of humor. They are always relatable. They make storytelling really feel personal. So there's one thing I feel Spotify did that made a lot of people like migrate towards it, and that's providing a wrapped campaign. By the end of the year, they'll come up your with your persona or what you listen to, and based on what you've done on Spotify, they'll come up with a summary of your artists, your favorite music, all things you've literally done, your listening minutes. And that's like something they've been doing consistently for a long time. And this alone makes a lot of people engage in sport. I remember one time when I was so excited about knowing my raps because I feel like to make me know more about me, I was so excited to post it, to share it on Facebook and that kind of thing. So I feel Spotify Wrapped is a campaign that really helped boost their brand and made people like listen to them because of the data they had to give, made people feel seen, they made people feel celebrated and listened to. So they've done a really good job in that part of digital marketing in regards to user experience. And
Thank you.
Spotify,
Okay,
okay.
continue. Just in like 1 minute, but please continue.
Oh, okay, okay. I wanted to talk about their Billboard and all that. I feel like although Spotify is mainly like international and they are more like based abroad, so I feel although they don't have a lot of billboards here and all, but online we can see their posts on how they partner with people like Billie Eilish and all other like huge influencers online to like create billboards, create organized events, and even partner with brands like Nike and Netflix. So that was what I wanted to say, that Spotify really like grown and created a lot of ads and a lot of influence online. Thank you.
Martina, thank you so much for that analysis. As marketers, obviously um, we have to be very, very, very analytical, if that makes any sense. And it felt like Martina was coming through a process or pattern with her analysis. Talked about positioning in terms of position for Gen Z, talked about tone of voice in terms of playfulness, talked about some of the strategies that they had implemented successfully across different touch points, from Wrapped to their billboard. One thing I want to address is, yes, and support or contribute to, is that yes, it's a global brand. However, what they try to do is localize it, right? Global standard, but implemented locally, which is a lot of things that the multinationals do. So if you check on social media, there's something called Spotify Africa, which helps them to position the brand and introduce markets into the African market. Okay, let me just take two more, guys. I'm so sorry. It's past 12 already, and I see that not everybody's able to wait till to wait more, as much as I would have wanted to extend this session. We're unable to. So we'll just definitely do another bootcamp that is just focused on marketing again, because there's so much to learn, really, and we'll just discuss more and learn more together. Adeton, please speak.
Hi, good
Hi.
afternoon. Thank you so
Good
much
afternoon.
once again for the session. The brand that I'm talking about is Golden Mall. Golden Mall is a brand that we're all familiar with. Their positioning in the market is such that it's family oriented, and that it's family friendly, it's nutritious, and it's convenient, and it's rooted deep into the Nigerian culture, right? So, and they've been able to craft a narrative around made in Nigeria, grown in Nigeria, with the maize and soya that they use for their products. Another thing that they've been able to integrate with their marketing and their messaging is that they've done like a lot of ads, that's radio jingles, they have TV ads as well, and then also like traditional ads as well. We see them on billboards at strategic location, we see them on like BRT buses, we see them on all these long buses. So they've been able to position their out of home marketing in that regard. And then also they are reinforcing everyday visibility, and also that they are available to not just the kids, but to also the parents. I remember in their most recent ad that I saw, they positioned it in such a way that they asked like the entire family was having the Golden Mom meal, as against natural perception that's only meant for kids. So they've done a good job to try to build a narrative around a family friendly product rather than just a for kids product. Another thing they've also done is, I think they had this campaign recently where they had like told where they had tried to generate user generated content, where they asked people to use the Golden Mon to create like different meals, different dishes, and then we see lifestyle creators, we see food bloggers, we see we see lifestyle creators, we see food bloggers, and then we see like all these Nigerian moms that are not even like social media savvy, just jumping on the campaign to make sure that they had like a video or something to post. So basically, and then they also do like event activation as well. There are some events that you see them having like a pop-up stand, you see them having booths, and I know they also do like this market activation as well, where they'll have like large trucks in between markets and they're playing music, etc. So in a nutshell, right, I'd say that Golden Mon, they've done all they can to stay top of mind for Nigerians, despite the competition from like Kellogg's and other foreign brands that we have. So they've been able to still reinforce their value with the African market. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Adito. Oh, I just saw that there are two Aditones, and the right Aditone was the one that spoke. Sorry, to the second Aditone, forgive me. And you know, Aditone, you're very much apt and correct, you know, while you were speaking, in terms of them positioning themselves as a Nigerian brand and for Nigeria. And there's something that you see consistently, all family cereal. And in your analysis of how they target children, and they're also targeting parents too as well, you're very much correct. Another competitor that you might not even have noticed, I don't think they're doing as much, maybe that's why, is Amazing Day by Golden Penny as well. So yeah, Golden Penny. And if you go on their digital platforms in terms of how they have, you know, communicated across different platforms, you see that Golden Penny is not doing too bad. I'm going to finally call on Esther. Esther, let's make it in like 2-3 minutes so that we can take questions and wrap up. Yeah, I don't want people dropping off before we just finish. Esther, I hope that's the
Hi,
only.
good morning.
Hi, Esther. Good
Can you hear
morning.
me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, so I'm going to speak under like 1 minute to save time. Um,
Perfect.
so the brand I will be talking about is Indomie,
Okay.
right? Indomie, they have very good market strategy in terms of awareness, in terms of publicity, in terms of marketing, in terms of education. So they do this thing whereby growing up as a child, they do this thing whereby they put stickers in the Indomie packs to like excite the baby bloomers. They still do it to date, sure. And they keep evolving over time. They have different brand products such as the onion flavor, crayfish flavor, oriental, golden penny, different kind of flavors to suit the different tastes of people. They also do advertisements through going for um to primary schools on secondary schools events, maybe probably like inter-house sports days, and they just share noodles to them. They also do feed secondary school students too. So like even in the universities, sometimes they do come around when halls are having like their whole week to like advertise and then share their products. Sometimes they do the free giving of the Indomies just to create more awareness. So like they have like a very, very good brand strategy and they keep evolving over time to catch up with both the adults, the millennials, the baby bloomers, the Gen Z, Gen Alpha. It's like almost everybody. Indomie is like the like go to, like in an instant noodles, like it says. So yeah, that's one brand I do mention.
Thank you, Esther. Love that. I think I agree with you where Indomie is concerned. With their ads too as well, if we look at it through a test of time, they've been very consistent with their Mama Do Good, to me, to you, and all of that. So that was a good analysis. I'm so sorry. I will not be able to take any more. It's already 12 and I will be very excited to respect your time. You know, I see what Fatoye Folusha dropped in the chat box and I like it. I need to commend everybody that has even spoken so far. It's like a pack of confident team that we have here. And that's really the point. I'm hoping that after we go, like when we're done with this good boot camp, we go into the world with all the confidence that we can muster and say that we're now great and experts or on our way to being experts where marketing communications is concerned. So thank you to the three people that have spoken. That was very good. The team will send assignments to you so that you can just share, I can give feedback and we can rework and adjust as needed. For the meantime, do we have any questions? I know we were about 100 when we started, but 69 of you stayed through to from the beginning to the end, and that's amazing. Like, right, well done. Draw a fine line between being innovative and cutting down costs for integrated marketing in relation to the okay, this is a be it ambiguous, but let me try and break it down. Being innovative and cutting down costs. I can imagine how this would be because this is one of the challenges when I was doing a full-time job. This is one of the challenges that I faced in terms of I have large ideas, right? And in the budget to um, make it happen was not necessarily there. But you become really creative if you're able to find a way to make it happen, right? So in advertising or in marketing, we have something called the peso model. So there's the paid media, there's the paid media, which is more of advertising and everything that you pay for. There's the earned media, which is based on how creative and innovative your advertising is concerned, is you just earn, it just naturally create buzz, and you realize that you don't even have to spend so much on marketing to just make it happen. If it's creative, if it's relatable, people are just really talking about it. There's the shared media in terms of, people sharing or third party sharing, and there's the owned media in terms of using your own channels in terms of websites, apps, your stores to advertise. So as much as possible, you want to use earned media. Let me use an example. King of Boys. I heard that when King of Boys was introduced into the market, they had not actually done anything for where PR or advertising is concerned. It naturally had its own buzz, right? So which was earned media. Like people were talking about it. Why? Because the story was great. The story was relatable. It was in line with the target market. So yes, how it happens, you first go and meet your CFO or COO. You ask for a budget. They say they do not have a budget. Then you come back and you really have to rework. In your reworking, you have to ensure that you're using as much earned media as possible. In a world that is very social media can help with that. If it's relatable, if you understand your target audience effectively, if it's in line with today's trends or in line with what the market accepts, then you naturally gain some sort of earned media. And so how some brands even leverage it is jumping through trends. For example, when that Nepo baby, Lapo baby was, popular at some point, you see a lot of brands jumping on it, creating some sort of campaigns and relatability through it. There's also using content as well to trend. So if you get content right, you don't need the largest of spend, right, to make it happen. There is Instagram that just ensures that the algorithm is favorable for you if you position right and you do things effectively. So I really hope that answers your question. Is at every point finding a way to be creative with your campaigns based on your understanding of your target market in order for you to have some sort of earned media, if that makes any sense. Do we have any more questions? If we don't, tell me, how was the first session? How's the first class? Okay. Are we still together? Are we tired? Are we still pumped? We have another session tomorrow. I hope we're ready. Awesome, very insightful. I like it. I like feedback, people. So you're gonna get feedback forms, and we're hoping that you feel it and you're honest, so that subsequently we're able to create for you and do things better. But I like it. I like it. Also there's creating buzz and there's building awareness, right? So I had talked about the different phases of marketing. There's awareness, there's interest, there's desire, there's action. So when you're saying creative buzz, you're at the awareness side of things. So you're just understanding your target markets, understanding the channels that they'll be visible at. Then you create your buzz based on that. But remember that your messaging has to be, everything works. The systematic approach that we talked about where Substack is concerned has to be tied and intertwined into everything for you to finally create buzz, but ensuring that that buzz ties into revenue, ties into value. I'm glad that you did. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, we're ending now. We've come to the end of today's session. a a so this is not a branding strategy, right? This is a marketing strategy. You're still going to have another session on branding, on brand thinking. That is going to, I tried not to delve too much into branding in this conversation, and that's going to talk to you about creativity. It's going to talk to you about branding, creating a seamless brand experience and all of that. An advice that I would like to give everybody is that what you hear or learn during these sessions, right, is one thing, but you need to go out and explore and read. What we're giving you here is literally the foundation. So you need to, for you to be a master, you need to pick them one by one. So stack, situational analysis, read all that there is to be, creating smart objectives, read all that there is to be, customer analysis, creating customer personas. We've thrown in a lot of buzzwords, right? And there's so much that we can give you on this call, on this 2-hour call. I told you people go to school to study these things for 2 years, 1 year, 6 months. So you pick it up, and oh, she's talking about if it's my brand strategy. No, Chidima. I think you want to ask Messi or maybe ask Noye. I can be a pest, but for this call, this is just real me. Um, so yeah, I was saying, pick each one of them. You understand the terms and all of that, and just develop. I really wanted to show us a sample of a marketing campaign on this call. I mean, if you want, I can just quickly show us something like real quick. I'm just gonna do it. We're already here. I'm just gonna do it. I want to show us a sample of a marketing campaign so that we can just see real quick. Let me share my screen since we're already here. So you can see what I was talking about where I said that, and there are so many marketing campaigns, right? Where I said that it's not a casting iron for everything. So, this was like a marketing campaign that my company created for Rough and Tumble. So this was under, they started from understanding the landscape, the clothing landscape, luxury fashion. Business objectives was to achieve 1.5 billion naira in revenue for a 3-month period. Target audience analysis to show you what I was talking about. Primary audience are parents. Remember, the final consumers, the people that would have eventually worn the products, are children, right? But this time it's targeting parents. You see here middle to upper. Then there's the secondary category of the market. Market opportunity. So I told you that, yes, so stack, right? But sometimes you just need to just understand the environment. Like for sometimes political will necessarily not matter. So, market opportunity, what is the consumer tension? We talked about how they value price and value perception. Since you're targeting like upper middle class / upper class, they're very focused on money. So if it's as the higher the money, the more expensive it is. Status and practicality, what's the consumer tension? More consumer insights. We did strategic framework, what we want to do at the beginning to the end. So we did more where customer insights is concerned. Then this is the big idea, styled for greatness, right? And this was the rationale behind the big idea, and creative expressions, right? And then did a couple of words to create some sort of experience, the look of greatness, and messaging, something like see greatness in their look. And remember, I said break things in phases. So first phase, how we will kick off the campaign, the different copies that we will have, references of designs, and sometimes we go far and beyond to actually do designs. And I can show you that, but maybe not for TV ads. This is going to be like the TV scripting and all of that. For print to how that will look, and reference for print. For TVC, a script was created, radio jingle was created, activation. So this is an integrated marketing campaign, runway of greatness. So we propose having like a runway and breaking it down to how it will work, in a way that it was just independent. I mean, it was just very detailed. Influencers too as well, identifying potential influencers that align with their brand strategy, the looks of luxury. Bring it. Somebody like Tomike was advised, Sisi Yemi, Mimi Onolaja, Nancy Ume, Tolani Tayo Osikoya, and all of that. Tying Black Friday into their campaigns, what the components will be for Black Friday, what the financial plan will be. So sometimes we actually literally break this down. And then I missed something. So what the target will be and how we'll measure for each of the different targets. Budget breakdown in terms of for the ad, for the campaign, then how are they going to get the money back, right, in terms of sales. So we're saying invest 495 million because sales was important to them and achieve 1.5 billion. So yeah, this is a sample of marketing campaign. It's not casting iron as far as you understand the basics. To share this on the group, maybe not. I might not be able to share on the group, but you have access to the recording and you'll be able to see it. Because it's not public material. I'm just sharing it for sharing's sake. Thank you guys for sticking with me for the past 2 hours, 21 minutes. I don't know if you're going to see my face till the end of the bootcamp, and if there's any other message to pass across. But it has been an exciting set of audience. Energetic class, I love it. Like, because of you, it was just very easy to scale through this class, and the confidence of the people that speak, I'm literally here for it. And I hope you go into the world to conquer. So if you have any questions, just let me. Who's this person that keeps writing? How do I create balls? What kind of balls are you trying to create? That's making you write this like 3-4 times. I've seen this like 4 times already. But anyway, thank you everybody. I hope you get some rest and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Take care. If you have questions, just drop it on the group chat or via the link. Bye. Thank you, Dami.